don't know why, but recently I've been in the mood to play a Musou game. Ya recordé por qué.
Last time, we looked at Hyrule Warriors vs Fire Emblem Warriors, a video that was mostly inspired by my love for these two franchises, but also to hype myself up for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Now where to start? Breath of the Wild was a game that turned heads. It wasn't just Zelda with a new twist. It had care and attention to detail with an insane sense of freedom and scope, perfectly encapsulating the feeling of adventure. It fell short in some areas, especially compared to other Zelda games, but the bottom line is, it was still a beautiful experience that the more I played, the more I found myself falling in love with. Age of Calamity, taking place 100 years before Breath of the Wild, was a surprise for me, because it wasn't just expanding on the universe, it brought back a familiar face, the Warriors formula. In the very rare case you don't know what I'm talking about or didn't watch my video before this one, remember that one memory where you see the aftermath of a battle where Link killed a bunch of strong monsters and that made us think, wow, if only it were that easy. Well, that's exactly what Hyrule Warriors is all about. Battles of 1 vs 1000s taking place in huge arenas. But this time, instead of paying homage to most of the series, the focus falls on Breath of the Wild, looking to add more to its world, which is both a pro and a con, depending on who you are.
I will make this clear. This video is spoiler free. That means I won't show the entire story, nor the characters that can potentially spoil anything. But here's the catch.
Unlike the other Nintendo Warriors games, the story this time aims to be a huge focus because it wants to show the events of the Calamity, and as we know, everyone fucking died there. So the only comments I'll make are this. The story is something you will like, or will understandably piss you off. Age of Calamity takes liberties, and also relies on the classic fanservice. I honestly enjoyed it because it fixed some of the issues I had with Breath of the Wild's narrative. Look, the stories in Zelda games are nothing mind-blowing. They are simple and enjoyable, complemented by great worlds and colorful characters which in turn makes them memorable. Breath of the Wild was minimalistic. That stood out even more because it was the first Zelda game since the CDI to have proper voice acting. It felt lacking, if I am blunt. This also extended to its characters. They were okay, but the best thing one could say about them was that their designs are cool. I know that was most likely an intentional decision, given how open the game is, but it still made me wish there was something more. That's what Age of Calamity makes up for. Cutscenes are plentiful, there's much more voice acting, the character interactions cranked up, and there's a better exposition of the events at hand. Again, the story is fine, a bit controversial, yes, but personally, I was left very satisfied and I found it easier to feel attachment to its characters, not only because they have more time on screen, but also due to gameplay reasons. At the end of the day, the combat can still be boiled down to pressing YX, YYX, and so on. But there's a few things that keep the monotony to the bare minimum. One is the amount of care and detail behind every warrior. This is a thing I mentioned in the past video. The importance of making your characters come to life. The original game was overflowing with depth to the point where every move and special attack felt like it was referencing something from the series, while staying true to the characters' personalities. Age of Calamity didn't slouch on this either. We have Daruk, the Goron champion, with a crusher and an impregnable shield. Let's combine both of those and give him an explosive magma gimmick entirely tied to the fact that he's a Goron. What do we know about Urbosa? She controls lighting and has a scimitar. Okay, make her charge her blade with electricity to hit harder, while she fights with the grace of a dancer. Those are just a few examples, but that logic extends to the rest of the warriors. I find it more impressive here than in the original, considering they were limited to only Breath of the Wild. They knew what they had, and made the best possible effort to make a roster that feels complete, that adds more to its characters, and is fun. Except Zelda. I'm sorry, her moveset has imagination, I'll give her that. But it's near impossible to play effectively as her. That's one thing Age of Calamity replicates well, but there's an extra factor that makes the combat better. How it implements core elements of Breath of the Wild. What defines the combat in that game? Well, not much really. It's super basic, even though there's a huge benefit in dodging and parrying at the right moment. What makes it different is how the player can use their brain to overcome an obstacle, and how they can take a different approach and use their surroundings to their advantage. That's what Age of Calamity takes from it. It's no longer about keeping your distance until an opening appears, or mercilessly mashing the same buttons over and over. The combat changes according to the context at hand. It makes the players consider more the strengths and weaknesses of the characters. Revali is great to quickly mount down small enemies, but he is super awkward to use in one-on-one combat. The Great Fairies have attacks with ridiculous range, but their massive size make perfect dodges crucial to avoid damage. Both Link and Urbosa are excellent against Guardians since their shields can send their lasers back to them. Everyone has access to the runes from the Sheikah Slate, but most of them use them differently. Some are good, and others bad. But it's definitely fun to experiment to see what works and what doesn't. There's also more than just knowing your characters, the terrain, your items, the enemy and your own skill. All of these can affect the flow of battle. Say you don't have someone that is good against a particular boss, but something like burning the grass or freezing the water can give you an easier time against them. Or if you want a more straightforward approach, dodging and parrying at the right time are excellent ways to leave the opposition open. This balances out by having more aggressive enemies. Strong ones are relentless, and small ones are far more resilient and can attack you from a distance, so that's more to be aware of. These design philosophies give Age of Calamity more depth and challenge, although the latter leaves me a bit mixed. The game has multiple difficulty settings, which is awesome to make it accessible to everyone. I myself went most of my adventure in hard mode, but here's the catch. Normal mode is fine, but I feel it was too forgiving and everything ended too fast. Hard mode, on the other hand, was far more punishing, which I liked. It made me play more carefully and be more involved in the game. The problem is, everything took like 4 times longer to kill, and that could get annoying. So what I recommend is this: if you're like me, play the main story missions in hard, and the side missions in normal. That way you can have a nice challenge and a fun time. The missions went through some small changes, which I think were very good. The story missions spawn across massive fields with multiple warriors to choose from. These ones tend to last longer, but they never drag on. The command mechanic is back and far more efficient. With an upgrade to teammate AI and the ability to switch between them whenever you want, you're guaranteed to always be right in the action. The missions were fantastic. All of the changes are one thing, but it's also the stages themselves. Once again, they take recognizable landmarks from Hyrule, but now feel more organic and complete. It's hard to explain, but they are structured in such a way that really takes you back to Breath of the Wild, with each area having its unique flair, adding multiple layers of detail while keeping a sense of familiarity. It's like just being in them also makes you want to explore them, And there's merit in that, in the form of treasure chests or Koroks you can find by pure accident. The stages may now be bigger, but that doesn't really affect the side missions. On the contrary, the ranking system has been removed, so you no longer have to worry about having a minimum number of KOs, receiving a lot of damage, or speedrunning through the whole thing. Most of the side missions now take place in small sections of a stage with very straightforward objectives. Thanks to that decision, they now last for a couple of minutes, and also have a better focus, making them far more enjoyable. Outside of those, there's a new mission type, the Divine Beasts. These are okay. Taking control of them and see everything blow up is quite exhilarating, but they're not something I will invest much time in, and I think they were aware of that. They're only mandatory a few times, and the other occasions are optional. I don't give them a hard time because they never overstay their welcome. An average of 5 minutes and that's it. Between these missions there's not much you can do other than the standard stuff. Level up, customize your equipment, buy ingredients to make food that can give you battle bonuses, or fulfill super simple requests for extra hearts or more combos. Unless you're Zelda. This is embarrassing. The presentation is very nice. Age of Calamity looks just as good as Breath of the Wild. That means the graphics didn't change at all. The art direction is the same, the user interface is very clean, and the character models are fine. But one thing that actually improved is the music. I know that was the point, but Breath of the Wild soundtrack is nothing special. There's good tracks, yeah, like the 5 songs I can remember, where 3 of them are rearrangements of old Zelda songs. Anyway, Age of Calamity brought an amazing score that, unlike Hyrule Warriors, doesn't rely on hard rock to pump up the action. It keeps a distinctive style that delivers a sense of grandiose and intensity to every battle. If you were to ask me about the lowest point of the game, that's very easy. But first I want to mention the camera. Locking on opponents is great, extremely useful. But restricting the camera movement, that's where things can get messy. Playing as characters like Hestu or the Great Fairies is not recommended in closed arenas because their size make an existing problem even worse. When fighting more than one enemy, it's always an eternal debate. Do I lock on to have an easier time with one enemy, or do I move the camera freely to anticipate the attacks of the others? But the camera is not the worst offender here, no. The main problem with Age of Calamity is a lack of optimization. Loading times are one thing, but during gameplay, it's super evident how much the frame rate suffers at all times. When the action gets intense, when the stages have weather effects, any mission related to the Divine Beasts. I love Mipha, I seriously do, but playing as her is guaranteed to make the game scream in agony trying to keep up with her. That's the breaking point here. Personally, I don't mind frames that much whenever I do a special attack because it ironically makes them feel more powerful. But you guys are not me, so I'm asking you, do frame drops bother you? Because this game is full of them. Consider that carefully before picking it up. Even after all that, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity ended up being far better than I expected. You can tell that the developers had a clear idea of how to bring an experience that is different, but also stays loyal to its source material while keeping its essence intact. It's no longer a generic action game with a Zelda coat of paint. It's a portion of Breath of the Wild but on steroids, and it works! It was so fun it left me yearning for more. Make no mistake, the game is very juicy. I scored 42 hours from beginning to end with a 70% completion rate. Not bad at all. But thanks to how much I enjoyed my time here, I couldn't stop thinking. Sure, we have obvious picks like Cass or these 2 guys. But it will blow me away to see how other popular Zelda characters can translate to this style. Come on, Nintendo! Second chance! My man Gruz can still make it! Am I spoiled for wanting more? Maybe, yeah, but that just goes to show how much I enjoyed my time here. And also, I just want to see more Zelda characters speak Spanish. Is it weird that I played this game with Latin American voices while having English text? Yes. Yes it is.
¡Qué ganas de hincarle el pico!
No! I won't explain why that phrase is so funny!
I love supporting Latino talent, especially if it's good. And this voice acting wasn't bad at all. I kept it the entire game for a reason.
Even if I find Age of Calamity to be the superior game mechanically, I still believe there's a ton of worth in going back to the original Hyrule Warriors. Both games aim to satisfy their fans. One is more mindless and has an overabundance of content, yet it's filled with so much love that every step is paying respects to the series. The other one closes itself to just one game, but manages to translate key elements in a different environment to make an adventure that is more focused and polished without feeling repetitive. Whatever the case, you can't go wrong with any of them. And remember, they're still far more fun than Fire Emblem Warriors.